Assalamu alaikum and very good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's forum session. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Abdullah Hakim and I'm going to be your moderator for today. Before we start, I would like to express my gratitude to our panelists for taking their time to join us in this forum. The panelists that we are having today are Nik Nur Husna, Aisah, Nur Sofea, Putri Sofea, and Nawal Nuha. The topic that we're going to discuss is, does Malaysia need sex education? To students who never took biology during their secondary school education, there is no special subject entitled to sex education in Malaysia. But the Ministry of Education has introduced the subject related to sexuality and reproductive health in our syllabus. Sex education is presented in a variety of subjects such as biology, science, and physical education. However, sex education is actually a much broader topic since this subject has been offered to secondary school students across Malaysia. Without further ado, I would like to ask our first panelist, Nik Nur Husna. What are your thoughts regarding sex education?
Okay, Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Thank you to our moderator. First of all, sex education can be defined as a way to educate young and adults on the risk of having safe intercourse. Sex education can help, but you need to have respect and understand the consequences that are possible, providing young people with the skills and tools to make healthy decisions about sex and relationship is far more effective than denying them information and simply telling them not to have sex. How far sex education at school still at the moderate level? We can see being applied in subject of learning like in subject science, which is taught about sperm and ovum, but has not reached a more effective level. Other than that, subject pendidikan kesihatan jasmani teach about this thing, but as I told, this thing has already begun, but it is still in the early stage, which is require more attention to sex education, more broadly and more informative. Like former education minister, Datuk Seri Mazir told they already have planned for this sex education for future plan, and he told that they already meet with the childhood expert to do discussion according to this issue, talking about whether it is appropriate for the module to be implemented in preschool. Refer to his statement, show how Malaysia take a step further based on this issue. Sex education need to introduce from the beginning, which is from preschool. So my point of view is that by allowing sex education in Malaysia, it should be mandatory, comprehensive, and medically accurate throughout student school year. Every person has the right to be educated in order to protect themselves from infection and disease that they might face when having unprotected intercourse. It slowly can help in preventing and reducing reducing sexually transmitted disease, or sometimes called sexually transmitted infection, from rising in Malaysia. STD are infections that spread from a person to person through sexual activity and can also spread through non-sexual, which means via blood. Based on the research, the studies also show that the school students are not sufficiently informed about symptoms measured to avoid getting STIs. Most of the students only know about HIV, as the case frequently appear in the media and discussed in school. However, other STI do not get such attention and consequently are not recognized by most of the students. Moreover, sex education is important in our bid to deliver the correct message to our children. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Pardon me, I think it is difficult to practice in real life. Many educators are asked to teach their children with proper ways and provide with accurate medical explanation. My argument is, how can we make sure that the child will understand what they had been taught in school? On the other hand, educators also need to watch the language they use um, in order to ensure the parents understand about the importance of sex education in school. There are certain children that are slow learner. They are not able to catch up if the teacher use scientific name. In addition, special needs children have high risk and more vulnerable to sexual assault. Many people think that sexual education are unnecessary to them as they will never understand or not sexually active. So, how did the information can deliver to them effectively?
Thank you, Husna, for sharing your thoughts about this topic. Next, we move on to our second panelist, Nur Aisah. I want to ask your opinion. Do you think young people in Malaysia need sex education?
Thank you, Mr. Hakim, for the question. In my opinion, Malaysians do need sex education to be taught since early age, but only after they change the negative perception on this topic. As we all know, many Malaysian parents are brought up in culturally conservative family background. Therefore, many of them think that early exposure of sex education to be irrelevant, developmentally unsuitable, and as a way to normalize inappropriate activities. In Malaysia, we can find many cases of unwed pregnancies among teenagers, especially in urban areas. This is happening because parents are busy working and do not have much time to look after their children's activities. Most teenagers that are involved in the consequences of, uh, I'm sorry, most of the teenagers that are involved in this situation are not aware of the consequences. This is because if the parent know they get involved in this action, they will get beaten as it is a taboo topic to discuss with family members. There are some interviews with residents of rehabilitation center for wayward girls saying that she does hesitate to speak about sexual and reproductive health with her children in the future. That's all for now. Thank you.
My opinion regarding this question from Aisha's point of view, my points about do I think that young people need sex education? The answer is yes. Sex education is to provide young people the knowledge, the abilities, and they need to make the best choices about sex and relationship for themselves throughout their life. Through sex education, they learn how to appreciate themselves for who they are, how have healthy relationship, make intelligent sexual decision, critical thinking about the world, and be a useful partner to others who are disadvantaged. Also, through sex education, it is good to encourage abstinence till they older. So the meaning of abstinence is the practice of restraining oneself or ourselves from doing something. In this case, this can help young people to avoid having sex to prevent many complications at the early age. This implies for them not to have sex until they marry. So sex education also encourage young people to make wise decisions regarding their sexual relationship and assist them in understanding the concept of consent. Lastly, it helps in strengthening their limbs in sexual activities and help them to recognize the difference between what is right or wrong. Okay, thank you. That's all from me.
Pardon me, Aisha. For your opinion just now, do you think that the teachers should be the one to be responsible for to teach teenagers about sex education in school?
Thank you, Mr. Hakim, for such a good question. Personally, I do not think that teachers should be the one to hold this responsibility. In my opinion, it is the parents' responsibility to talk about sexuality and reproductive health with their children and to provide them with proper education. According to Hannah Yo, Deputy Women, Family and Community Development, commented, commented on cases of abandoned babies that sex education should be taught by parents as early as 4 years old. There are several reasons why sex education has become a taboo topic for the youngster. First, the word sex itself have many negative perception, and second, many people misunderstand regarding to the meaning and content of sex education as it teach and encourage teenagers to have sex. Due to this factor, parents prefer to avoid discussing this topic with their children. To be honest, it is better for parents to personally teach their child about sex education rather than they discover it by themselves. Sources of sex education includes peers, romance reading material, and illegal sources such as videos and images. Romance novels usually describe the storyline more graphic and sweet in their description on sex, whereby if there is no control, there is a high potential of children to do experiment with premarital sex. Without proper control, children may also easily be influenced by bad peers or adults. According to our age, Sarah, who was a resident in a rehabilitation center, said that she was involved in these activities because of a guy she met online. He is responsible to teach her what to do while having sex, but did not tell her it can get her pregnant. As a 14 years old mother, she do not manage to prevent it from happening. In addition, in Malaysia, we rarely discuss the sexuality of child during parents-teacher meeting. As the result, they are most likely to act according to their natural urge. In certain occasions, parents do not know what. In certain occasions, parents do not have knowledge, shy or uncomfortable to explain to their children about sensitive questions regarding sex. Before I end my part, I would like to share some suggestions that can be useful for parents to start teaching their children regarding this topic. First, as for kids, parents need to ensure their children know the difference between good and bad touch. Second, children need to be exposed about reproductive system and how babies are born. Early age of education can prevent children from becoming victim of sexual crime that are normally committed by adults near them. That's all from me. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. In my opinion, is teachers are also the best person to teaching such knowledge to young generation. It will be suitable to be taught and educated by the appropriate individual at the suitable time rather than from a forced person. School also can play a role in teaching teens about such issue, ensuring that all members are rich and professional knowledge is delivered in the most effective way possible so that young generation should understand and do not misinterpret it. Sex education should be a part of every student's education. A young generation need to be informed about sexual behavior, sexual health issue in the most appropriate, non-judgmental way possible by well-trained specialists.
Thank you, Aisha, for clearing that up, and thank you to Husna. Now to our third panelist, Nur Sofea. What is the suitable age to start learning about sex education?
Thank you, Mr. Hakim. That is an interesting question. In my opinion, everyone can learn sex education regarding their ages. But people have been wondering what is early as age that you can teach sex education to children, or if we old enough, we can we learn about sex education? So there are some articles that I read. The first one article that I read from Rezana Jasmine, the article states that the appropriate age for sex education are early primary school, late primary school, secondary school, and university students. However, another article from News Straight Time, our Deputy Education Minister, Teo Nin Ching, said in an interview that students will be introduced to topics about sexual harassment, child grooming, possible rapes, and other topics in Pendidikan Jasmani Kesihatan (PJK) under the Reproductive and Social Health Education (PEERS) topics. Therefore, lessons on the topic will start to introduce to the year 6, which 12 years old, and Form 5 students, which 17 years old, with suitable content to represent this lesson. So the final article that I read from Institute of Islamic Understanding Malaysia, the author mentioned an Islamic scholar, Dr. Abdullah Nasir Ulwan. Dr. Ulwan said that in Islam, teaching about sex education must be done according to the children age phrase from preschool until premarital days. So to conclude all this article that I read, and to conclude my points, that suitable age to start learning about sex education are as early as the age between 7 or 8 years old, and keep continuously learning about it until they're old enough to get married, which means that no matter what age you are, you still can learn about sex education. I hope that is clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Now we know that it's not too late for us to learn about sex education and not afraid to let our children learn at early age. Let's move on to the next panelist, the fourth panelist, Nawal Nuha. What are the red flags that people can learn from sex education?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nuha. I'm a lecturer from University of Malaya, and I do have some extra knowledge to share about the topic. First and foremost, I will answer the question, what red flags can young people learn through sex education? Well, in my perspective, a lot of organizations have made events through programs and has made interesting gallery attracting youngsters to learn more about sex education more deeply. However, the topic often been forgotten after a few months. In result, no progress has been made to change the current situation. Nonetheless, we still have hope by trying another recommendation, which is Malaysian production should try create a drama series about how lack of sex education has ruined many young girls' lives based on true events. Television show is one of the most fastest way to influence society and make them realize how the world is corrupted. Hope I did provide good information for your question. Okay, I would like to add my point of view of sex education. We'll help avoid unplanned pregnancy for teens. I agree that our society needs sex education due to what I observed in my research made online. In Malaysia, sex education is uncommon, especially for teenagers in the rural area, where their parents do not think it is important to have a proper teaching, whether from home or school. According to the statistic online, 18,000 teenage girls in Malaysia got pregnant on average yearly and visit government clinics for care. However, that is only the amount of the ones who went to clinic. What need to be concerned is when some girls never visit a clinic, naively denying the possibility of pregnancy and end up dumping their babies after giving birth to them. Baby dumping statistic recorded by the Malaysian police averaged by about one baby dump every 3 days for the last decade. Not to forget, the lower socio-economic status level which includes single mothers with children and parents who work two jobs or shift, has left their children unattended at home, is where the majority of teen pregnancy cases in Malaysia occur. These young girls lack attention and are left alone with a lot of free time on their hand. Due to their lack of sexual knowledge, these girls engage in risky intercourse, which typically results in pregnancy. In response to the issue, it does not promote sexual activity but rather postpone initiation and lowers risky actions. I can conclude that not having proper sex education for young girls will lead to unwanted pregnancy, making them face many consequences involving their future. Moreover, abstinence education, sex education will teach them how to say no, as well as how to spot dangerous behavior and circumstances that might result in premarital sex, and how to calmly and assertively deal with pressure points such as when someone says, I love you, if you love me, you will do something. For instance, such men could make them confused with what is right or wrong. Last but not least, teens may avoid making rash judgments with proper teaching. That's all from me.
Wow, now we know that there are so much red flags that we can avoid by just learning about sex education. Now that have been established, we would like to know, why is sex education beneficial? Can our panelist, Putri, explain on this matter?
Yeah, Assalamualaikum to all the panelists and the moderator. In my opinion, sex education is one of the most crucial and important subjects that need to be considered. As for now, I will say that it could bring a lot of benefits towards the youngsters. Sex education is the most effective way to avoid many bad things. As we all know that child marriage is becoming prevalent in our country now. Teenagers always want to get married at an early age due to lack of sex education. Young people are not mature enough to make decisions by themselves, and that's why they need knowledge about sex and guidance from adults such as parents, teachers, and family. As a result, it will increase understanding regarding sexual consent on both parties is especially important in preserving both parties' welfare and health, particularly on female teens. Another concern problem that should be looked for is sexual harassment in Malaysia, which was not reported due to humiliation and awareness that there is nothing that can be done regarding this matter. This can lead them to be unable to withstand the pressure from the public and commit suicide. Therefore, many criminals walk free while victims who are traumatized appear powerless. Moving to my next point of view, it is important for teenagers to recognize their boundaries. By applying sex education to the syllabus, we as teenagers are more likely to understand what are appropriate and inappropriate behaviors. Nowadays, we only learn a few parts of sex education, whereby the scope of sex education is actually huge. So by teaching body safety, or as well all know as sex education in the school, we are increasing the chances of them being able to recognize their boundaries among themselves. Furthermore, teenagers are less vulnerable to exploitation and sex abuse. In the current year, cases of sexual abuse and rape among teenagers are increasing rapidly. I would say that teaching teenagers protective skills is an important part of sex education in the early years. This includes teaching them about feelings, persistence, personal space, and more. If they have those protective skills, they will definitely be able to protect themselves from any sexual abuse against them. Thus, youngsters will gain more knowledge about pedophilia. Pedophilia is psychologically harmful to children, and since they cannot validity consent to sex with children is a violation of their rights. Pedophilia is also a common thing in Malaysia. Why do we need to let children suffer from this pedophile? We know that pedophile can ruin their future, and if they don't have any knowledge about this, how do they avoid getting caught? With sex education, they will be more careful with adults. So I think that sex education has lots of benefit for teenagers to apply into their daily life. Okay, that is my answer. I will pass to the moderator. Thank you.
Excuse me, I disagree with panel Putri Sofia about child grooming and marriage due to many apart from religious belief and sentiments. Malaysia is a country with a majority of society believing religion, whether it's Hindu, Islam, or Buddha. The religion may influence their perspective on what they should think and feel. Regarding the sex education here, could be a taboo topic to them since religious people are adamant that their children should not be exposed to something so uncivilized as sex while they are in school since their faith forbids it. They reject it since it compares their religious sentiments and belief possibly out of moral property, such as mentality thinking that sex education would affect or treat their teenagers to think that it is okay to do such immoral thing.
I am sorry, but I also want to add my agreement on Nawal's part. Yes, sex education do have many benefits, but what is the reality of a world without sex education? We all can agree that it is common to think by providing youngsters with practical information about constructions and having sex we encourage sexual activities. However, if this topic is so taboo, doctors and hospitals might not provide elder patients enough guidance about their sexual health. In fact, some countries took sexual education seriously by banning contraception and abortion, and most society thinks that masturbating to be abnormal. For example, recently in news, June 2022, United States announced that they ban abortion and it's illegal to get abortion in at least 11 states. This can be considered that lack of sexual education promotes existing taboos. Therefore, the reality of the world without sex education might lead them to trial and error sex, which can cause them to erectile dysfunction or dissatisfaction. Additionally, without sex education, sexual repressions can lead to sexual violence and sexual deviancy. Sexual deviancy means behavior when people engage in sexual satisfaction through odd, unusual, and desirable methods. That is all from me. Thank you.
That is fantastic. We understand not only sex education is important, but also can bring impacts on us if we do not take sex education seriously. Sad to say, our forum has come to an end. Before we end our session, we would like to thank our lecturer, Madam Nur Ahmarizam, for giving us guidance for our forum today. We also would like to thank our panelists for taking their time to join and explain to us about the topic. Does Malaysia need sex education? Thank you all for your cooperation and participation. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you.